Welcome back to the Win with Dice podcast, a podcast featuring members of the Win with Dice team. I'm Calvin, and I'm joined here by Ramon.
Hey guys, this is your first time listening to the Win with Dice podcast. This is a podcast all about tabletop RPGs. Calvin and I like to take a casual approach to the hobby, and on this podcast we talk about the games that we play in, the games that we're running, just everything about being a GM and being a player in these this fun little hobby here.
Yeah. This week we wanted to get into talking about the Grand Saga TTRPG alpha playtest that Ramon has been working on. There were some updates to it recently, and we also wanted to talk about some of the NPC stuff that GMs can work with if they're running the game. As always, if you want to check out the game for yourself or build a character or even run a session of it, it will be linked below in a Google Doc that you can go ahead and check out. And if you have any questions or comments, you can leave them down below, or you can message us on our websites or on our social medias.
Yeah, definitely. You should check out this file pretty often, because I think not a week goes by or a day goes by that something doesn't actually change in the playtest. So if you want to follow along, listen to the podcast. Obviously, we'll tell you updates, but also if you just want to check out the document to see like the design process and how the game's kind of shaken out. I think it's actually a really, if I had access to like Pathfinder 2nd edition when I was like as a player or whatever, as a person of the hobby, just to see like the developmental process, it would just be awesome. So yeah.
Hopefully it's at least a little bit like that. We want to get into all of that fun stuff, but before we do, we have to get to the most important part of the show, the Win with Dice weekly GM tip of the week.
Yes, the Win with Dice weekly GM tip of the week, brought to you by Ramon. I was thinking about this the other day while I was, daydreaming about all of the campaigns on hiatus, as you do as a GM. Unless you're Tim, you kick ass and just force everyone to play your game every week or 2 weeks, which is the way you should do it. Don't be like me, be a Tim.
Yeah, actually schedule things, and then they will get done.
Yeah. If there's a date on the calendar, the people will show up, right? But that's not the tip. That's a secret second tip. Okay, the actual tip of the week is that GMs new GMs I find get really wrapped up into like the lore and the world building of the hobby, and like the actual, instead of like the running of the game and like how the players interact with that kind of information. It's really cool to think of like this crazy backstory of your world, this crazy mythology, and if you want your players to interact with it, you really have to like connect the two dots of like what the player and the adventure and like your campaign storyline, and like how the like mythology of your world, or your world creation, or your lore, or whatever that you're trying to get across, interweaves into that storyline, right? Because if it's not pertinent information to what the players need to succeed, then they're actually not going to pay attention to it, right?
I mean, I don't know if that's true, but only for me specifically.
Yeah, only if your player is named Calvin.
And I write stuff down.
Yeah, I think Calvin will actually, if Calvin's actually a player character, he would be like a scholar or something.
I really should play a wizard.
Yeah, you should. I think you would be pretty good at playing a wizard. Although, to be fair, wizards really only happen in two ways. Either you're crazy and think you're a cowboy, but then turns out Tim's really nice and made you an actual cowboy, or two, you're just smarter than everybody else. So.
Yeah, no, I totally get where you're coming from. Definitely, like, there are a lot of details that you can create that really aren't real until they get in front of the players, and even then they can be retconned and things like that. But at the same time, like, stuff has to be relevant for it to be remembered and come up. Like, even myself, like, I will forget things and I'll have to scroll back if something hasn't been relevant for a while, or if not at all.
Yeah, exactly. And especially like big world ideas. Like, if think about how like your creation myth of your world, or like the gods in your world and their stories, right? That kind of stuff in the real world, like, they tie directly into like lessons learned or whatever, right? Or significant places, right? Things of like tangible value, I would say. So if you're gonna have like a lore, mythology, or gods in your world, make them like represent things more than just like lightning or fire. You need to make them like represent like good, like not good, but like morals and like, you know, courage or shit like that, and like put like their temples, you know, maybe if they're like a god that wasn't been worshipped, or like a great hero that hasn't been worshipped in a long time, there you go, there's your dungeon, right? Make these temples, these old places of power, you know, just secluded in the world, and that's the way that your players can get involved with, like, you know, your crazy lore that you dreamt up in the middle of the night.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it can be a quest that's as simple, like mechanically, as just go to a place and get a thing. But it gives you a chance to explain a neat idea that you had if you really need to get it out there.
Yeah, to be fair, the two campaigns on hiatus are actually based on the really hardcore creation myth of my world, but my players actually have no clue what's going on. But
I remember the snakes in the refine.
I know. Yeah. But it's like what actually happened. You know, nobody actually knows except the players might find out if they ever get to the end of it, and only if I ever run any games again. You
gotta just set a day, man.
I do have to set a day. Actually, I've been itching to play Pirate Campaign. But anyway, there you go, folks. There's your When We Dice Weekly GM tip of the week.
All right.
Put the lore in your story, and your players will touch it. They'll touch up your lore and be like, "This is cool."
Yeah, that, but just worded better.
Yeah, worded better.
All right, let's get into the meat of this episode. So you've made some updates to Grand Saga recently. Do you want to get into those, and let's see how the game has been developing so far?
Yeah. Actually, I ran a playtest with a couple of friends a couple weeks back, and then I realized, I was like, I don't know if this game's fun. I'm kidding. But,
you've just been staring at it too long, so.
Yeah, I know. I've been
there.
I know every single tree, and I'm not really seeing the forest, right?
Yeah.
But there were some system changes that I wanted to make, because I think that one section in particular, like the defensive oriented section, like the armor and stuff that, you know, you would typically associate in a game, like wasn't feeling right to me. I think that it was a little bit too complicated and not really fulfilling what I think is like the role, I guess, like what somebody would actually wear armor for. right Grand Saga is I want the game to be like fun and exciting, but also drawing from like real world stuff a little bit. So
okay, so you want the armor to feel more like purposeful, or more like how armor would work.
Yeah, not just like, you know, a random value, because before armor used to be like, it's like you put an equipment on, your stats will give you some armor, but it was mostly just like absorbing damage, kind of like it would absorb like, you know, some light damage, some heavy damage, and it would tick down and get deteriorated, right? But I found that it was like taking away from, like, there's too many numbers and bars to manage. I think I imagine all of the numeric values as bars in Grand Saga. So it's like, you know, you have to control like, oh, I got hit, oh, okay, I have armor, how much damage is, and then it's like I tick down the armor by 1, and then it's like, what would a player want to feel like if they want it to be like really defensive, or like feel like they can shrug off hits, they can do stuff like that, right? But to me, I don't think it was like manage another bar, right? Because if they want to feel like they can take a bunch of hits, it made more sense to just have your HP bar be maxed, right? It'd be like, oh yeah, I have like tons of HP, I don't really care about how many times I get hit, I can just get hit more times. That's like really what the armor system was kind of ended up being.
Okay. So, like, instead of having to manage armor damage, it's just that you can take more damage, and that's represented in your hit points.
Yeah, so now armor provides resistance. So now the resistance rules, I don't remember if the last time we spoke, we updated it, or spoke on Grand Saga, we updated it, or I told you about the update, but like essentially it scales the damage. So damage is super being 12 damage, heavy being 6, light being 3, and then now there's chip damage, which takes the place of reliable damage. So I think chip damage sounds better. And it's just 1 damage, and chip damage happens whether you hit or miss inherently. So now resistance scales that series like Danzon. So if you've got if you're about to take super damage and you have resistance to that kind of damage type from like an armor or like an ability, then it goes down to heavy damage, which like basically halves, and then like heavy to light, which halves again, and then light to 1, which is like so if you're a character wearing a bunch of heavy armor, then you have resistance to like a lot of stuff. Like I think the heaviest armor right now in the game, battle armor, reduces your movement speed, but then you get resistance to all damage pretty much.
Okay, so everything moves down one step.
Everything moves down one step, and then bonus damage is kind of like the additional damage, like that's tacked on, usually scales, and that gets halved when you have resistance to that damage, as well as you can be resistant to forceful movement, like knockback or being pushed and pulled or being launched, that kind of stuff.
Okay, so does armor still have any sort of deterioration to it, or like any impacts on it when it's used in combat?
It does not, but there are enemy abilities that can impact your armor and break your armor, that kind of stuff. As well as now critical hits, they just ignore all resistances.
Okay.
So even if you have heavy battle armor, if you get critically hit because they get past through your armor or their blow is just so powerful it blows through, now it just you just get hit directly with your HP. So you don't add any resistance to it, on top of moving that damage scale up 1. So,
Okay, so critical hits. So I think we did discuss it. Like they move up 1 step on that damage scale, and that still applies even if you have the correct armor, just because it's a critical hit.
Yes.
Okay, like it doesn't like even out or whatever.
No, it doesn't even out. It just you just blow past it because I think that's kind of cool.
Sure.
Yeah, that critical hit should feel critical. Like, oh my god, I'm gonna die.
That's understandable. Like the armor is still useful in the majority of situations. It's just those rare times where either something gets through that you would receive that damage. And really, if you have armor such that you're like used to not getting damaged, you'll probably be okay taking one of those heavy hits.
Yeah, and it kind of pushes the precedent. I have also everyone's HP gets bumped up. I haven't put this in the document yet, but I've been trying to figure out the numbers. But going forward, all of your stat increases are going to be kind of based on your class. So some classes, when you take them, aspects from that class, when you're level up, you'll gain HP or an ability boost or a movement speed boost. So now every character has a movement stat that when you use the dash action, it moves that much spaces. If you use the sprint action, you move double that much spaces. So now, if you want to be a slow tanky character, well then, you're a slow tanky character. If you want to be a fast character, that means that maybe your defenses aren't going to be as strong, or like your HP isn't going to be so you can't take that many hits. That's kind of like the trade-off.
Right. And that's also represented in the kind of equipment that you use.
Yeah, so now that everyone has like a little bit more HP, just because like your armor reduces, like, because the majority of the damage in the game is light damage, that now you can take, you reduce that light damage to 1 damage, right? So if you have like, I don't know, like 15 HP, if you're just gonna constantly be taking 1 damage every time you fail, that's not that big of a deal, right?
Right.
It makes it so like there's still a ticking clock for players to defeat the enemy before they either score a critical hit or like get or just be whittled down. You can chip someone's HP down to nothing. Anyway, yeah,
and it works the same way like for enemies as well.
Yes. So enemies also have resistances. As well, if we kind of get into it, they also have an offensive and defensive stat now. I've been actually not avoiding giving like offensive and defensive stat, because I couldn't figure out a way to get it to work. But now, if they have an offensive stat, it'll say specifically like what kind of role they have an offensive stat as. So now they have a section of the stat block that lists like an ability score or a type of attack, and it says like a number X, and it's like where it indicates the number of difficulty added to any player save rolls, and for defense, and then offense is like, sorry, for any player attack rolls for defense, and for offense is any player defensive save rolls. I said that right. Yeah. Basically, the number says how much difficulty you get on the roll depending on what you're trying to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have an example you want to get into? I know we wanted to talk about NPCs today, but I also wanted to cover like the changes and stuff first. But is there an example of what you're describing that we can cover as part of this update?
Yeah. So in the fighter template, the monk archetype of the fighter, like they have defense agility 1. That means any agility attacks a player targets the monk with, they actually get a difficulty at hitting them because the monk is dodging the attacks.
Okay, I see. So that's like, is that similar to, well, it's not the exact same as resistance, it's just that that's a thing that they're particularly good at defending against.
Yeah, but and as well as like, so in the sorcerer template, the Terramancer, which is like the earth wizard, the earth wizard, they have resistance to projectile damage and projectile attacks. So any attacks that are projectile attacks, they get resistance to. As well as, we should probably talk about projectile attack. So projectile attack, it's another keyword adding on to attacks. So attacks can be melee, attacks can be ranged, attacks could be ranged projectile, attacks could be ranged magic, and as well as like magic melee. I think that's like really, I'm sure there's a way for you to have like ranged magic melee projectile attack if you wanted to stack a bunch of stuff. But they're just kind of tags to see like what kind of weapon or what kind of attack is. Projectile attacks are like shooting a gun or a crossbow. You know, you're physically not shooting magic at somebody, you're not physically punching somebody, you're like sending some solid piece of object towards somebody, whether it be a bullet, an arrow, whatever.
Okay, and so what is range then? Is that like more magic based or?
So range just means that it's a ranged attack. It's not up close. It's not a melee attack.
Oh, so projectile is like a subtype of ranged, if I'm understanding?
That is correct. So
okay.
Like magic technically is a subtype of ranged attack, but magic is also a subtype of like melee attacks. So there's still physical. There's physical and magic, as well as in those there's other subtypes where it's like projectiles are typically physical projectile attacks, right? And then you could also have like a magic ranged attack, but it's not a projectile attack.
So if you're calculating, like if you have a character ability that has something to do with like ranged attacks specifically, would projectile attacks still fall under that category?
Yeah, because as long as it has a range, which it has to have because it's a projectile attack.
Oh, so anything with a range would be a ranged attack.
Yeah, the game is all of the actual tags, I guess, or the profile of the attack will tell you exactly what abilities can trigger off of it. So if you have a thing that says like all the ranged attacks get +2 range, then anytime you see range and a number, you add +2 to that, and then that's the range that you can attack with.
Okay. Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
It's just, yeah. It's just like, but I just need like another category to kind of emulate the aspect of like, I want to specify that like this ability is only for shooting people with a bow and arrow or something, right? Just like another subcategory that can like, you know, differentiate things that, you know, I don't believe should mix so easily, I should say.
Oh, actually, well, I'm actually kind of curious about that. Like, why do you need the distinction between something that's ranged and something that's projectile?
Well, because like the idea of like having like a throwing weapon, right? It's like what is that? Or like, is that just a melee weapon? Is it a projectile weapon? There has to be like it needs to like the line has to be drawn somewhere, I think. And as well as it gives the NPCs a little bit more space to be unique, right? Like the Terramancer specifically says it has resistance to projectile attacks, right?
Mm-hmm.
So instead of it being resistance to all ranged attacks, because a lot of magic attacks are ranged attacks, right? So it's kind of like the idea is like this dude is like hardening in their body that like these bullets just bounce off of them, right? Versus like, versus getting up close, maybe you're able to stab him, or like maybe he's able to like use the rocks to block the incoming fire. But then when you get up close, they move too slow to actually get in the way of your sword blade, or you're able to move out the way so you can like stab him or whatever. It just kind of brings the little bit more flexibility on like what NPCs' defenses could look like, or offensive too.
Oh, okay. So it's just a matter of giving more different kinds of tags and abilities. Like like enemies can have different kinds of resistances to each other. Instead of having everything like have a range resistance or defense, it's just some of them are better against certain kinds of range attacks.
Exactly, right? So it's like sometimes people are really good at ranged magic attacks, or just magic attacks, or like only melee attacks, right? So then like when we get into the NPCs, all these resistances and defenses, they all stack. So if you blend like the Terramancer with the Monk, they would get resistance to projectile damage, as well as a defense to agility 1, right? Mm-hmm. So this NPC is really good at he's really good at absorbing projectile damage, as well as like a lot of projectile attacks are like agility based. So someone trying to shoot this, essentially Toph, I guess, it would have a really hard time. Which I think would make sense if you're trying to shoot Toph. She would just be like, no, there's rocks here now.
Yeah.
Right?
So
yeah.
Better defense, and then even on a hit, better resistance. You mentioned that it stacks, so I assume that if something has, like, for agility, like 1 difficulty, like if you combine it with something else that has 1, does it go to 2?
Yes.
Okay.
So now it's like really hard for the NPC to be attempted to be attacked by a agility ability, because they're just so fast.
Okay. I feel like we're going too far into NPC stuff. Were there other updates that you had made?
Yeah. I gave I made a new tag. I think I made a bunch of new tags into actions. So now point blank used to be kind of like a inside the tag, but now point blank just means that this range attack ignores any difficulties from adjacent foes. So if you have an attack that's point blank and it's an agility attack, but you're right up next to a double agility defense monk or something like that, right? Because that attack has the point blank, you ignore all those difficulties. You ignore his defenses for that roll. So you just get whatever bonuses that you get for it, because you're so good at this attack is so good at just blowing people up right in front of them.
Oh, you ignore all difficulties. I might be mistaken. I thought there was originally difficulty for range attacks if you're within melee range of.
Yeah, but
target.
not all attacks get point blank.
Right, it's just some of them ignore all. Okay, I'm just scrolling through the text right now. So this ignores literally every difficulty, like not just the one that you would get from doing range attacks next to an enemy.
Yes. But okay. I mean, you have to get up close. But if you're also good at range attacks for this attack, it's probably going to be agility, and they're probably going to, if you're attacking someone up close, then more than likely they have like a might thing, and you're going to fail that save because you suck at melee combat, and only the mighty get to live in melee combat land. That kind of deal. Arcing is now its own thing. It just you can target. Oh, it was there before, but now it's like a specific tag. That now you could target a foe that's within line of sight. That's not within line of sight, but is in attack range. Now there's a new tag called Negative Edge, borrowing from that fighting game, my fighting game experience, and like that kind of genre of games. So Negative Edge in fighting games is that the move comes out not on button press, but on button release. So it's actually like quicker.
That's quicker?
So yeah, it's actually quick. Negative Edge actually makes it quicker because you could be holding down in fighting games, you could be holding down the button and just waiting for your opponent to do something. As soon as like lifting up your button, like it happens instantaneously versus like your finger has to travel the distance to press the button and register.
Oh, I see what you mean. So like releasing the button as a reaction to your opponent doing something instead of pressing a button to commit to an action.
Exactly. And you can press you can press down multiple buttons in fighting games. It just depends if you want to release, like you could release all of them and then the negative edge one would happen. Like there's ways to like kind of do that stuff like that. But in general, the frame data for those moves are just better because it's like on negative edge. So you can just release it and be a little bit quicker.
Okay. I was thinking about like the literal button interaction. Like the button is pressed down and then released and then some code happens. I forgot about like players have to move their fingers.
Yeah, like the mechanicalness of actually inputting buttons.
Yeah, I was like, how is release faster? The press event happens sooner. Oh no, people have fingers.
People have fingers. Yeah, okay, we're all playing The Sims, man. But anyway, so this one, Negative Edge now says, these attacks cost -1 action if you have used a non-negative edge action previously. So essentially, these actions become free if you use another action before it. So that kind of clears up a lot of like this action costs -1 action because of XYZ. Now it just this action has negative edge.
Oh, okay. Are you going to keep the term? Because I like the term, but I don't know if it's going to be understood by a general audience.
Well, I don't know. We'll see. I thought about changing it to like Swift, but like I'm sure if someone ever played a fighting game a little bit, they would be like, "Oh, negative edge. I know what that means." Because the idea is like you don't get to do it for free. You get to do it after doing something else. You know what I mean? Like you do something, you punch, and then on the like you follow. It's like a really quick follow up. Like almost instantaneous follow-up because it doesn't require an action. It's not like you just get to do a bunch of free actions for free. It's still, that's kind of the idea of it.
Oh no, mechanically it makes sense to me. I was just wondering if people would get that name.
Yeah. Okay, let's jump to the items because I think the items got changed a lot.
Yeah, and that was something I was wondering about before we got started.
Yeah. So now, let's go to the signature weapons. That one's changed a lot. So now they're in 3 categories. There's melee weapons, projectile weapons, and magic weapons. So now you get a choice to be like what you're wielding. And unless you're a warrior, you can only wield, well, unless you have the warrior class, you can only wield one weapon at a time. So you only can equip one weapon at a time, but you can like have multiple signature weapons kind of stored in your gear slot, just held in there. And so now you can switch them out with the use action during combat if you want to change up your style or whatever. But for like melee weapons, everything starts off with common and then kind of grows off of the like with other perks to become uncommon. So like bashing is a common melee weapon, and like an uncommon melee weapon would be like a parrying bashing weapon. So you just like compound both those abilities that you get from wielding a bashing and a parrying weapon.
So you add those tags onto essentially a mundane weapon?
Yeah, so like so everybody in Grand Saga is considered to having whatever weapon they need to do the thing that they're trying to do. If it has like a slash in its name, consider that you have like a melee weapon on hand. But those are like mundane, like this is just like a regular ass sword. But with a signature weapon, it's like something that's cool. Like typically, like the idea of it is that this is like a named piece of equipment, right? And this thing is like either fancily made, jewel and bound, magically gifted. The blacksmith with the magical hands has made it from like a meteorite.
You put a soul gem in there, and
yeah, right. You put the soul gem in there, right? It's like they're of note to keep track of your in your inventory.
Right.
Right. Grand Saga is like you are a hero. It's like you're not rat catchers. You're like level 10 people already in like Pathfinder D&D terms. Like you've already been around the block. Like so like when you're wielding something that's like like important, it's like this is a bashing weapon. You use this to bash people across the room. Like it's already kind of better than like whatever else everybody else is using.
Mm-hmm.
But it's common for you, but not common to like regular people.
Common to heroes.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like when your +1 swords become mundane, like, right? But like realistically, that +1 sword to like any farmer is like the most legendary sword in the entire world.
That is, yeah, because it's like literally a magical weapon, even if it's a like low-level magical weapon.
Like that dude thinks it's like Excalibur, right? But you're like, nah, man. Like some goblins had that. Like
adventure in life.
Exactly, adventure in life, right? So yeah, so you would combine these things, combine the uncommon abilities with the common abilities, and get yourself your own signature weapon. That's why it's like not just like equipment, like weapon. This is a signature weapon. Like this is like, you know, Goku's like Neobo bow staff that like extends 1 billion miles, or like Cloud Stripe's big Buster sword, right? Stuff that's like your character could be known for carrying, or like you're like, or like when you walk up, people are like, what the hell is that?
Yeah, something unique and distinct to you.
Yeah, so like for instance, so another one would be like, you know, for magic weapons, you have like for common, it's like wands, scepters, and staff, and they all give like different bonuses. Like scepters, when you focus on a magic attack, you get +1 to critical chance, right? And then, you know, the uncommon, you could have it be like socketed, so it's like a socketed scepter. So now any mana minerals, which is like mana rocks, like you can just toss at somebody, it does like an effect. You can now apply any mana mineral that you have on you to like on that attack on a hit, or if you know you're trying to apply it to yourself, you can apply it before the attack is rolled. Just makes it like, you know, so you know you just like you shove this fire crystal into your scepter, and all of a sudden all your magic attack shoots off a fire flame or something like that. Like at the same time as like a lightning bolt, so it's like a fire lightning bolt blast or whatever.
Oh, okay. Does the mana mineral like normally you could just use that on its own, but this lets you use it with your weapon?
Yes, so mana minerals, but you have to use the use action, and you have to be adjacent to somebody to use it, because you have to like physically, you have to like yeet it at them, but you're like stab it into them or crack it on the ground. So like, you know, you have to like activate it and like in their face pretty much.
Oh, okay, so making your signature weapon a socketed weapon means you can just do that within the same action or on the hit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's kind of just now gear is all looped into, so accessories and signature weapons are all looped into the gear slot, which is like just the generic, like this is what I'm carrying on myself, equipped it at the time, gear slot. There's still general inventory, and now consumables still have their own slot. And as well as like you can have, like again, like I said, you can have stuff held in like your gear slot but not be used unless they're equipped. So
is there a difference between held and equipped?
Yeah, so like you could have 2 signature weapons held in your inventory slot, but only one of them is equipped at a time, unless you are a warrior, right?
So by held you mean like within your
like
inventory?
Yeah, like on your person, easily accessible in battle. So now your gear slot specifically, like you can have access to that stuff in battle. You're still carrying like your generic inventory, but that's like stored away in your backpack or whatever. You can't access it in the heat of the moment.
Oh, okay, but you could access it with a use action.
Yeah, or like it's like on your person, so you can like, so if you want to like change your inventory around, then you can during like a rest or something like that. Or like, you know, stuff that's like not combat focused can be stored away in your general inventory, that kind of thing.
Okay. All right. Are there any other updates you wanted to talk about?
No, I don't think so. Nope, no major updates. I think that's all of the things I've done. If there is something else, I guess I'll mention it as I remember it.
Fair enough. All right. So I did want to get into the NPC stuff, and I was thinking maybe we could go through the process of building like a boss NPC and just go through, because I think we did discuss building like a basic enemy before, using, I think we had an example that was already written in in the playtest rules.
Yes, yeah. We did do that briefly. I think that example, because of the changes, it's still here. I need to update it. But yeah, we can build a boss NPC. I think that'd be pretty fun. I've been trying to tinker around the boss NPCs to get them to work a little bit better. But yeah, I want this to be, the idea is to be overwhelmingly hard, but also doable still. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The fine line of like, damn, this is some tough shit. I hope you get past it. And then you do.
Cool. Do you want to go into this with an idea, or let's just like add things as we
Calvin,
go on?
You tell me an idea, man. I think
I
need some skin in the game from you. That's what I need.
So I know this is sort of like a science fantasy world. So I kind of want to lean into some of the tech stuff and sort of like mix it together with the magical stuff. So I'm picturing something like large and robotic that's acting as a cage for some sort of magical entity. Probably electrical.
Okay.
Okay, the backstory I'm picturing for this thing that just flashed into my head.
Yep. Is this Lava Girl and Shark Boy? I think there was
is
a
it?
dude who was a bad guy like that.
Look, I haven't seen that movie in years. It only exists in memes for me now.
Well, I think there's just a big mechanical electric dude. That was like the first thing I was like, wait a minute.
No, it's not gonna have George Lopez's face on it. So what I'm thinking is like there's this really old, rusted out robotic machine that's been lying in some remote factory, completely abandoned, and then somehow during like a lightning storm, some sort of lightning elemental or electrical magic being, because of a random lightning strike that hit the metal of this robot, it ended up getting stuck inside of this robot and has gone rampaging on a nearby town.
Ooh, that sounds really cool. I like that a lot. So let's start off with the lightning portion of this, and because when we're building NPCs, you have to choose a base form.
Yeah.
So there's three different base forms you could choose. You could choose humanoid, you can choose beast, you can choose elemental. So humanoids are people for the most part. They have equipment. Their abilities come from like their equipment, the gear that they're wearing, that kind of stuff. Beasts, they're wild beasts. They have inherent abilities of movement baked into their profile. And elementals, they're kind of made of the elements that they represent. So like lightning and water and stuff like that. So they're able to apply status effects usually associated with those elements, like they can burn people and stuff like that, just kind of inherently. So that's kind of like, I think the elemental, as well as there's a lightning elemental, so you can choose from, that we can choose to use.
Perfect. So let's start off with the base of a lightning elemental. And should I write this stuff down, or are we just gonna go through it? Are you just gonna pick the things?
Well, I'm just gonna copy it into Notepad. That's how I run my life. It's in Notepad.
Okay. I will trust you to do the writing then.
Okay. So now we got our base element. So our base lightning elemental. They get an ability because for the minor ability, they'll have elemental essence. So they're immune to the type of terrain and status effects that they produce. So a lightning elemental can't get dazed because that's what they do. They gain physical resistance while they're not staggered. So because they're on a different level than everybody else, they're magical. They get to have a little bit of resistance if they're not staggered. And cool. Since this is going to be a boss, they also get the major elemental abilities. So minor abilities are for standard regular enemies, and then major abilities are for anything that is a major or a boss.
Okay, so for the major of the elemental base, it looks like there's composite elemental, which is choosing an additional option for your elemental essence.
Yeah, so this lightning elemental is mixed with a little bit of something else. So you go with earth because maybe it's like a rusted machine, so maybe there's some like dirt involved with it. It's Frankenstein monster. Maybe it was like a welding machine, so maybe it could have fire because it could burn people.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was at. I was thinking either fire because of the function of the robot, or maybe wind because this elemental came from a storm.
That could be too. I mean, wind would be pretty cool. So So for the element of lightning, you can teleport when you move, and when you teleport, deal chip damage to all adjacent foes, and all your attacks gain on hit. The target is dazed. If they already don't have it, they just get it as well. So yeah, if you choose Calvin if you want wind or because of the storm, you want fire because of the robot. It's up to you.
I'm kind of leaning towards wind just because I'm picturing this thing like using the airborne abilities with a wind elemental to like hover and be intimidating in the sky, and then when it wants to get down and dirty, it'll lightning teleport down.
Yeah, so wind gives you airborne, so you're flying. It also gives you projectile 1 defense, so you're just harder to shoot because, it's windy. And then your attacks gain on hit, targets launched because it gets hit by, you add a little wind gusto into your attacks.
So does that, I assume it does, but I just want to check, does the on-hit effect stack? Like, do I get the launch 3 of wind and the days of lightning?
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
cool.
You're a major threat. So that's why elementals, they don't like the humanoids get like a lot more defensive, but not a lot of, and like they get specialities as well. But the elementals are really all about like hitting those status effects, hitting those forceful moves, being like a big bad force of nature. That's kind of the idea of the base.
Okay, I can definitely see it messing someone up if it like does the lightning teleport and does chip damage to all the adjacent foes. But more importantly, they all get launched back and they all get dazed.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Good luck for anybody fighting this dude. Okay, now we get to, because it's a boss, it actually gets 2 templates. So luckily for you, I have a automation template, which is the robots, if you will.
Okay, there it is, Automaton template. Okay.
So there are 3 abilities listed. Like I said before, they're all based on the arcs. So arc 1, depending on, I'm not sure what arc you want to do. Let's do arc 1 because it's simpler.
Yeah, let's say this is like arcs are tied into how the quest and saga system work, and it's essentially like a lower level to higher level quest event. Yes,
essentially. So like in your story, there's 3 arcs to your your campaign, and that's kind of like the idea of it. But it takes up, like, every arc has a level associated with it. So your level 1 party would be on arc 1, a level 4 party or a level 3 party would be like on arc 2, and then the enemies grow in complexity versus like growing with like stats. I would say like your players are the only ones that are growing with stats now. So
yeah, so they're facing new challenges.
Yeah, they're facing new challenges. So now the first arc 1 ability for automations is Armored Core. You gain Bulky and Wreck. So Bulky means that you act like an object in terms of like blocking line of sight and providing cover and that kind of stuff. And you count as a machine for any effects. So a lot of the options here say do X, Y to X machine. You are not so. While you're not staggered or stunned, you're immune to burning, poisoned, weakened, strained, and you ignore difficult and dangerous terrain because you are a robot. You do not care about, you got treads, you're a big hulking machine. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. This thing is also flying, right? So that probably helps.
Yeah, for sure. It's like a big meaty boy. All right, so now you get to choose one of the subcategories in the template. So there's jet frame, there's demolition frame, there's tank frame, there's mechanized infantry, there's like support pylon. They all have like their own. This is where you get like the raw stats as well as like a supplementary ability based on like the archetype, I guess, or the template archetype.
I'm kind of thinking. I like the idea of demolition frame. I'm kind of seeing this as more like maybe it was at like a factory or like a construction site of some kind, like something that would require some demolishment, and then maybe whatever project it was involved in, or whatever factory it was involved in was just abandoned for some reason. So they left some of their robots behind, including this demolition robot. It could have been a factory that actually like makes construction equipment, including robots that are required for demolishing and constructing things.
Sure, it could even just be like a construction site.
Yeah. It's malleable.
Okay, so So for demolition frames, you get +4 HP, +1 to the size. So in the elemental template, you can choose to create your elemental between size 1 and size 2, and then inherently, whichever one you choose, you actually get +1 to that size. So you choose between size 2 or size 3 if you're making a demolition frame elemental. So the size listed in the entry just increases that like choice that you have to make.
I'm kind of seeing this being a pretty big boy, to be honest.
All right, we're size 3, so that's cool.
Yeah.
So it's size 3. Since it's size 3, HP also scales for elemental. So for every size you are, you get, or for every for every size you are, you gain +2 HP. So we're sitting at, so it's 2 times 3 is 6, +6 is 12, +4 is 18 HP. He's a chunky boy.
Yeah.
18 HP. As well as you get resistance to physical, which I think you already have, but now you're just purely resistant to physical no matter if you're staggered or not. As well as you get an ability called Demolition. Demolition. I was like, did I write that right? It's a might agility save special physical /1 melee attack. It does heavy damage and it destroys all wall and terrain objects, and it just big swing of the hammer, big pound of the fist, it just wrecks whatever's in front of it.
So I see you have might / agility here. Does that mean the target can choose if they want to save with might or with agility?
Yes.
Okay. So then you just deal heavy damage, just 6 damage. You can also destroy wall, terrain, and objects.
Yes. So now you can choose to have an optional ability that's listed from the automations. So just to kind of even flavor your NPC out a little bit more.
Okay, so I'm looking at these. Part of me wants to put heavy servos on it and just knock people back like 5 whenever I slam down on them.
Heavy servos is pretty good. Strength augment's pretty funny. You get offense might 1. So your might attacks, the player has more trouble trying to defend themselves with a might save roll. All melee attacks, which you already have demolisher, gains +1 bonus damage and +1 knockback. And for all grapples, you count as 1 size larger. So you're already larger than them, but now you've been.
I feel like that's stronger. That seems excessive. I don't need to be size 4 for grapples.
I don't know who's grappling you at size
4. I do like the difficulty on melee attacks, though. I do see you also have like spirit augment here. I was wondering if that could be something that like happens because you have an elemental in a machine, basically.
Yeah. So it gives you +1 spirit offense. Magic attacks gain +1 bonus damage and +2 range or area of effect. And if I would suggest that maybe you pair the automation template with your second template would be like a sorcerer template to get and be like a lightning sorcerer or something like that.
Yeah.
Right, to represent the elemental side of it.
So I'm thinking this thing's already a pretty big chunky boy. We might need to give it more magic options. So I think maybe the spirit augmentation of the automaton type.
Cool. Spirit augmentation. Okay, cool. So now you have offense spirit 1, resistance physical, as well as projectile offense 1.
Yeah.
Or projectile defense 1, sorry, I should say. Or defense projectile 1. I'm not sure how to. I'll figure out how to actually word that properly, and I'll just make sure it's the same for everywhere. You're pretty tough to shoot, actually. All right, so let's go to the sorcerer template.
Yeah. So since it's a boss, it can get, like as you were saying, it can get 2 of these templates a normal thing would normally have 1.
Yeah, normally you'd have 1 to be so normally you would have 1 if you're a major enemy, so you would have 2 templates at that point, but because you're a boss, you have 2 templates and you have a boss template on top of that. So for the sorcerer one, you get mana boost, which is a charge boost. So when you use the charged ability, you gain the charged condition, and then it's kind of like you're powering up like like in Dragon Ball Z, like they power up for a powerful attack, and makes all your magic attacks gain overwhelm 1 based on the amount of damage you're doing to you're gonna do to the PC, the player.
Right. And overwhelm, I think we talked about last time. If you want to go over it again.
Yeah. So overwhelm means even on a miss, you still take take damage to like your ability. So you reduce your ability by the overwhelm cost. So if an attack has overwhelm 2 and you manage to save, that means that the attack was so overwhelmed you so much that you actually reduced your effectiveness at like you reduce your mightiness because you took so much effort to like block the attack essentially.
Right. So you lose from the ability score instead of your HP.
Instead of your HP, like on a miss, right? So then it's like it eventually it's kind of wearing you down. It wears down like your actual abilities to fight. This is such a big busted move because it's a mana boosted attack. And like we said, we could go make it Electromancer. Electromancers get +4 HP, +2 move, and defense physical 1 because it's hard to shoot electricity in my opinion, or attack electricity with physical stuff. I don't know. That sounded cool to me.
Makes sense.
Makes sense. And it gets an attack called Shocking Bolt. It's a spirit basic magic line through melee attack, and it does light damage. And on hit, the target stays, and on miss, the target deals chip damage. So it's like pop it into the page.
I feel like this thing's gonna be pretty painful.
Oh yeah, this is how cool it is. So now on top of the 4 HP, we're gonna get another 4. So now we're at 22 HP. As well as the movement goes from 4 to 6 because of that extra +2, and we also get physical defense 1. That's a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, we get to choose and add an option from the sorcerer template.
Okay, so I was looking at the options for sorcerer template, and I just saw chain spell, and I thought that really made sense for something that's lightning based.
Oh yeah, you're right. Chain spell is pretty good. So chain spell, it's a charged boost. So all of the charged effects all stack together. You just have to be required to be charged to get them, right? So chain spell is a charge boost. So any single target magic attack gains repeats this attack, targeting a new foe within the range. Actually, this might not work because you don't actually have a single target attack.
Oh, isn't the Electromancer Shocking Bolt? Oh no, it's a line.
It's a line.
Ooh, good point.
You can do living magic. Living magic is probably my favorite. This is really good. So, a basic magic action gains, summon in an adjacent space to the target or in target area, a size 1 elemental magic minion, right? It's immune to physical damage. It gains pure essence, so like the same essence, like the same abilities that like the elemental has, as well as at the start of your turn, it just repeats the magic action. At the end of your turn, it flies for you. So you do some little magic elemental after you shocking bolt somebody. It just like becomes alive, like it shot a piece of itself, and it's like now it's attacking you as well. It's like pretty, yeah.
That's pretty good. I was also looking at Slip, which gives you a teleport ability. Would that stack with the other teleport ability that you have? Like, would that also trigger that, or would it be a separate thing?
Oh, it totally will trigger. Anytime you move as a lightning elemental, you do chip damage to all adjacent people that you teleport towards, or you teleport adjacent to, right? It's kind of like the idea is that you like come down in a flash of lightning. The lightning literally hits the ground and it's you. You are the lightning. You're riding the lightning.
Okay, I kind of want to go with Slip just because it'll work with the teleport ability that we already have here.
Yeah, Slip to do.
So since we picked the elemental base template, we also have to pick the boss template for the base, essentially.
Yeah, essentially it's like instead of it being based like the template, the boss templates are based on the other templates. It's like the boss template is based on the base creature, what it is.
Right.
So it's like if you're a humanoid, you could be like a sword sage, just a dude who's really good at slapping people with a sword. Or if you're a beast, you become a kaiju because you're just giant and you don't care about everybody who's small. But for the elemental, is the elemental avatar. So you have elements of manifestation. It's a boss action. At the end of your turn, you get to choose one based on your elemental essence. Because we're a composite wind and lightning one, we get the wind and lightning one. So we get wind cyclone. It's a magic burst 3 technique. So we have to not anything that has to deal with magic is affected by this ability or triggers off this ability. Targets are launched and grounded. So it's like this big swirling wind cyclone that you kick up at the end of your turn, and you create any created terrain or objects that are not bound, like attached to the ground, are also just blasted out of that burst 3 area because you're a walking tornado. That may be a better name called walking tornado. That sounds pretty cool. But and for the lightning one, it's called striking thunderstorm. So as well, in a burst 3 magic technique, in a burst 3 area, deal chip damage to all foes, and they're also dazed and blinded because lightning's actually really bright. So there's like a big bunch of lightning strikes coming down. It's like hard to see. So this dude is really tough. I don't know how anybody's actually gonna fight them.
Yeah, this thing's got a lot going for it right now.
But specifically, the boss templates don't give any raw stats. They usually just give like abilities, and usually have boss actions that allow them to really put the hurt on the players, because bosses, you tend to run bosses by themselves. They're usually solo fights, and because they're so complex, you kind of want to run them by themselves, and they're so tough and they usually have lots of HP that they can really take a beating and really challenge the foe. So if you in review, this thing has 22 HP per wound it can have, as well as bosses also can take 3 wounds. Oh wait, no, is it 3 or 2 wounds? 2 wounds, sorry. So they can take 2 wounds. So they have essentially this boss has 66 HP that you have to deal with, which is a lot, but not actually that much. That's actually not a lot of damage for 4 players to actually just wail on a boss.
Yeah, assuming they can hit with all the resistances.
Yeah. But so it has defense physical 1, defense projectile 1. It has resistance to physical, and that's about it for defense wise. So it still cares about magic, still hits it hard pretty good. Melee attacks, magic melee attacks actually do the best against this thing. So if you had a rune blade or something like that, you can do pretty good damage to this thing, as well as all these resistances and defenses. If you got a bunch of bonuses from it being off balance, it being prone, you getting focus, you combining stuff with other teammates, you poisoning this thing or whatever, there's tons of stuff that you can do to this boss to really kind of put the hurt on, as well as as this boss accumulates wounds, it gets the same wounds that players do. So the GM gets to choose whether or not maybe it's bleeding out, maybe it's it takes +1 difficulty to all the or +1 accuracy to all the rolls because the players are beating on it so well. There's just so many stuff you can do to this boss that isn't just oh, this damage, this dude's HP is so high, how am I gonna do this? It's nah, man, you just gotta, if you just roll a bunch of critical hits, all the defenses don't matter, all the resistances don't matter.
True. So this is a matter of researching your opponent, understanding what you're fighting, and then working together as your team. That's why this is a boss instead of just a first thing that you fight. Exactly.
You're working your way up to it, and you're not alone. So, you can rely on your it's a team effort.
Yes. Okay.
Team effort.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So I think I was trying to come up with a name for this thing, but I think I'll just leave that for the comments to decide. If you come up with a name and maybe more details for this encounter, just drop them in the comments below.
Yeah, no, I think this thing can really devastate a town.
Yeah.
I mean, this thing is wrecking up buildings. It's the wind is howling constantly. There's lightning storms coming down. People are getting fried left, right, and center. Oof.
I'm definitely thinking you know, if you do manage to beat this thing, then you got to do some research into, well, how did this happen and who left all this equipment here, and then that could be its own storyline and all that sort of thing. But that's a whole separate thing. And then when we talk more about like narrative stuff, whenever we talk about that, we can probably get into that sort of thing.
Yeah, for sure. And storyline could be like maybe the lightning elemental is trapped actually in the machine and it doesn't understand because like I want to be free. I'm lightning.
Exactly.
I'm trapped in a metal body.
All right. So I think that's gonna do it for now. Again, if you guys want to check out this book or this playtest, it is linked below. You should be able to see a link to the Google Doc below. You can click on that and you'll be able to take a look at it. And again, if you want to try building a character with it or an NPC or building a session or anything like that, yeah, just go ahead and do that and then let us know how it works out for you. Ramon, is there anything else you want to say real quick before we head into the outro?
No, but I'm excited for people to check it out. I really want some feedback, so maybe we can set up something to like give people feedback. like you know, in the if you want to ask a question section, you could just tell me, you know, if I'm totally wrong about all of my things and tell me how to fix it. That would be pretty awesome.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, we do have the contact page linked in the document, so I think it'd be pretty easy for people to find.
Yeah, easily accessible. So just put it in the that thing that Calvin said.
Yeah. Or in the comments below. Additionally, since we're rolling to the outro, if you are scrolling down to look at the comment section, check out the description to see links to all of the awesome Lancer third-party creators we've talked to. There is a bunch of cool stuff in there that we talked to them a while ago about all the things they were working on. There's like half dozen projects in there for you to go to check out. As well, continuing shout-outs, the Untold Stories Project, where I'm at on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, and now Fridays in the podcast that's released weekly. So if you want to see all the awesome stories and stuff that are going on over there, I know they're planning a really big event at the Origins convention, so definitely check out their socials and their streams to hear more about that. As well, speaking of streams, please check out our gaming streams. Playing some Sims. Sims is the new Thursday game now that we've finished with Batman. So, yeah, that's going to be going on for a while.
Apparently there's some tennis ball booties.
Oh my goodness.
I've heard.
Don't worry about it. It's my first time like actually playing Sims, so it's been really fun. People are recommending like a bunch of challenges and stuff, but I kind of want to like get used to the game before I start mixing things up. But hopefully we can squeeze one in. I was hoping to play Sims for like 10-12 weeks, and then switch it up. Like I want to keep cycling different games in, but I think I'll stick with Sims for a while because I was getting really into it.
True.
But as far as the current streaming schedule goes, it's Sims on Thursdays, Skyrim on Fridays, soon to be followed by Divinity Original Sin for a bit, and then Mass Effect 3 on Sundays, which we still got a ways to go through that, but then that'll be followed up by Dead Space.
Ooh, I wonder what color choice you're gonna choose.
I don't know. I wanna get to the end of Mass Effect 3 and see why people were so frustrated by it, because
Wait, you never played Mass Effect 3 at all?
No, the only Mass Effect game I played before streaming was the first one.
Wow. All right, cool. All right. We should have said this up top. All right, cool.
Oh no. So yeah, I know people were mad about something, but I don't know the specifics because I avoided it because I thought I would play it eventually.
Well, I hope you enjoy it, Calvin.
Oh no. Well, if you want to see if I enjoy it, then check out the Sunday streams. But that's all I've got for now. Ramon, anything else you want to say before we head off?
Good luck to you with Mass Effect 3.
See, now I'm really worried. Alright, well, for all of our robotic and electric GMs and players out there, just remember to keep on winning with dice, and we'll see you next time.
Alright, bye guys.